They say a wedding is supposed to be one of the happiest days of a father's life. You watch your little girl, your baby, dressed in white, glowing with joy, stepping into a future you always hoped would be brighter than your own. You're supposed to feel proud, fulfilled, maybe a little sad, but never broken, never humiliated. Yet on my daughter's wedding day, I was forced to the ground. It happened in the blink of an eye. I had walked into the grand reception hall with my daughter's hand tucked into mine only an hour earlier. The chandeliers sparkled above us. Music floated through the air, and laughter filled the room. People were eating, drinking, celebrating. I sat at the family's table, my heart pounding with joy and nerves. I never expected betrayal to find me there. As I prepared to sit down, her fiancé, the man she had chosen, the man she loved, stepped behind me. I thought he was being polite, perhaps helping with my chair. But no. With a sharp tug, he pulled the chair completely out from under me. My body crashed onto the polished floor. A thud echoed across the hall, followed by gasps, and then laughter. Cold, merciless laughter. I remember the burn of the floor against my palms, the sting in my knees, but nothing hurt more than their laughter. My dignity crumbled as strangers, family, even friends, tried to stifle their giggles but failed. To them, it was a spectacle. To me, it was a wound. Then his voice rang out, sharp, cruel, and unforgettable. Your place is on the floor. I froze. His words pierced deeper than the fall ever could. I looked up into his eyes, searching for remorse, for even a flicker of shame, but all I saw was arrogance. Arrogance and contempt. My daughter's face paled. She didn't laugh, but she didn't move either. She just stood there, torn between the man she loved and the father who had raised her. I struggled to stand. My legs trembled. Not from age, not from weakness, but from the crushing weight of humiliation. My heart screamed, "How dare you? How dare you treat me this way in front of my child, in front of everyone?" But before I could speak, before I could reclaim even a shred of dignity, a voice cut through the noise. A man's voice, calm, steady, but shaken with disbelief. "Sir, is that you?" The laughter stopped. The air grew heavy. Guests turned toward the source of the question, the groom's father. He stood frozen, staring at me with wide, haunted eyes, as if he had just seen a ghost. His hand gripped the edge of the table for support, his face drained of color. "Sir," he whispered again, louder this time. "Is that you?" Silence rippled through the hall. The mocking smiles faded, replaced by confusion. Whispers began to swirl like restless shadows. What does he mean? Who is this man? I rose slowly, straightening my jacket, steadying my breath. My humiliation was raw, but in that moment, I held a different kind of power. I met his eyes, and though decades had passed, recognition burned between us like fire. "Yes," I said softly, my voice carrying across the stunned hall. "It's me." His jaw clenched. His lips trembled as if words had formed but refused to leave. He stepped back, shaking his head. No, it can't be. You were—" He stopped himself. "Dead." That was the word he wanted to say. He thought I was dead. I saw the fear flash in his eyes, and in that instant, I knew everything was about to change. You see, my daughter's groom had no idea who I was. To him, I was just an ordinary old man, his future father-in-law. Someone to mock, to belittle, to break. But I am not just a father. I am not just a man in a suit watching his daughter's wedding. I carry a history, a dangerous history, and the man who had just recognized me, the groom's father, knew it. Because years ago, long before this wedding, long before my daughter was even born, I was his enemy. The enemy he thought he had buried forever. And now, fate had dragged us back together. His son marrying my daughter, our worlds colliding under a single roof. I could see it in his eyes, terror. Because if I was alive, if I was standing there, then the secrets he buried were about to come roaring back into the light. And in that moment, one thing became clear to me. This wedding wasn't just a celebration. It was a battlefield. When the groom's father spoke those words, "Sir, is that you?" I felt the air in the room tighten, as though the very walls had leaned in to listen. All eyes were on us now. The laughter that had humiliated me minutes earlier was gone, replaced by confusion and unease. People whispered, heads tilted, waiting for someone to explain what was unfolding before them. The groom, the arrogant boy who had pulled my chair, looked bewildered. He glanced from me to his father, irritation building on his face. "Dad, what's going on? Do you know this man?" His father didn't answer. His eyes never left mine. He looked at me as though I had crawled out of his nightmares, as though the grave had opened and spit me back into his life. And in truth, maybe it had. I straightened my back and met his gaze. "Yes, you know me," I said firmly, my voice echoing across the silent hall. "You've known me for a long time, longer than your son has been alive." Murmurs broke out. Guests turned their heads, searching for answers. My daughter's face turned pale, her hands shaking as she reached out toward me. "Dad, what's happening?" she whispered. Fear and confusion etched across her features. I couldn't answer her. Not yet. For years, I had hidden the truth from her. I built her life carefully, brick by brick, shielding her from the shadows of my past. But tonight, those shadows had found us. Tonight, there was no more hiding. I turned my eyes back to him, my old enemy. Memories flooded my mind, sharp as broken glass. It was decades ago. I wasn't always the quiet man people knew me as now. Once I was young, determined, and fiery. I was a man who believed in justice, who refused to stay silent while corruption spread like poison. Back then, the city was drowning in lies. Businessmen lined their pockets while workers starved. Politicians turned their heads while crime flourished. And at the center of it all was him, the very man now staring at me in shock at his son's wedding. He was powerful, untouchable, the kind of man whose name opened doors and whose money silenced mouths. But I wasn't afraid of him. I stood up. I spoke out. I uncovered things about his empire that the public was never meant to know. Illegal contracts, blackmail, blood money. I gathered evidence. I stood in court. I spoke the truth, and for a while it looked like justice would win. But power has a way of bending justice to its will. He used everything, his influence, his money, his connections, to twist the truth. Witnesses disappeared. Judges changed their tune. Newspapers that once printed my story suddenly labeled me a fraud. And then the threats began. My name was dragged through the mud, my job destroyed, my safety threatened. Until one night, an accident nearly claimed my life. That was the night I disappeared. To the world, I was gone. To my enemies, I was dead. But I wasn't dead. I rebuilt my life in silence, starting over with nothing but my will. I buried my name, my past, my fight. I married, became a father, and lived quietly, far from the chaos I once challenged. My daughter grew up never knowing the battles I had fought, the enemies I had made. But here he was again, the man I had once tried to destroy. And fate, in its cruel sense of irony, had brought us together at my daughter's wedding to his son. The room was heavy with tension. His son, the groom, the boy who had mocked me, looked annoyed. "Dad, what's all this about? He's just some old man. Why do you look like you've seen a ghost?" His father's lips trembled. He said nothing. His hands shook slightly, gripping the back of a chair. "You thought I was gone, didn't you?" I said, my voice calm, though fire burned inside me. "You thought your world was safe, that you'd silenced me forever." Gasps rippled across the hall. People leaned in, eyes darting between us. The groom frowned. "What is he talking about? Dad, what's happening?" Finally, the groom's father found his voice. His words came out low, strained. "This man, he's not just anyone. He's the one I told you about." The groom's arrogance flickered, confusion crossing his face. "The one you told me about? Who? What do you mean?" His father swallowed hard. "The one who tried to ruin me." A wave of whispers rolled through the crowd like a storm. I stepped forward, my eyes locked on him. "No. Not ruin you. Expose you. The weight of my words struck the room like thunder. My daughter clutched her dress, her face pale. "Dad, what does he mean? What's going on?" Her voice cracked. I looked at her, my heart breaking. She didn't deserve this. Not tonight. Not on her wedding day. But the truth had clawed its way out, and there was no putting it back. "Sweetheart," I whispered, "there are things about me, about this family, that you don't know. Things I prayed you would never have to know. But tonight, the past has come for us." She shook her head, tears brimming in her eyes. "No, no, I don't understand." The groom turned on his father, frustration boiling over. "What is this? Why does he matter? Why do you look so terrified of him?" His father's eyes remained fixed on me, his face pale. "Because if he's still alive, then everything I built, everything I've protected, could fall apart." The silence that followed was suffocating. And I knew then, as everyone stared at us, that this wedding was no longer about love. It was about truth. It was about survival. It was about the war that had been paused for decades, and was now beginning again, right here under the chandeliers in front of my daughter.